most worldwide fans of the planet's hottest entertainment with an edge. I'm En Fuego here, and I welcome you once more to my namesake program, Enfuegotainment, for a Rapido Fuego review. This sucker just came out today. That's right, the newest from Charlie Kaufman, writing, producing, and directing, if I'm not mistaken, and it is exclusive to Netflix. It's called I'm Thinking of Ending Things. And if you're familiar with a lot of his previous work, not only is it going to be kind of jarring in the storytelling structure, but it is also going to deal with relationship stuff. Yeah, we're talking the guy who was a frequent collaborator with Michel Gondry, great French director. Music videos was his starting point, and then he got into doing stuff like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind that Kaufman wrote. I think they also did Human Nature together, if I remember correctly, Tim Robbins. But, I mean, Charlie has ventured into directing his own stuff. 5 years ago, he co-directed a really just upsetting, emotionally stop-motion film called Anomalisa, I believe it was. But yeah, so just long story short, his MO in a lot of ways is, that sort of, non-linear storytelling, but also just looking at the sort of tension that happens in romantic entanglements. And this film is, it lives up to that. And yes, it stars Jessie Buckley, who was honestly probably my favorite performance last year for Wild Rose. It was my favorite movie last year. Terrific, work from, I believe she's Irish, but I know she was featured on like the UK's one of those music competition sort of shows. And then I know there's another Jesse, I forget dude's last name, but he's the other guy in this relationship. So essentially they're going to meet her boyfriend of 6 weeks' parents, and it turns into, as you've seen the trailers and stuff, a very awkward sort of situation. You've got Toni Collette, you have another actor who, I recognize him, I know he was in the Potter films, he's been in various other things, but yeah, so that's really our four main leads, and it's jarring, it's kind of convoluted, but it's also kind of emotionally impactful. It's beautifully shot, all of the stuff since I believe Synecdoche, the one with Philip Seymour Hoffman that he did, I believe that was Charlie's directorial debut. But yeah, so I mean, it's shot very well. There's a few sequences, excuse me, that incorporate animation. There's dance sequences. There is a strange love letter in this to just theatrical performance. It shows up a few times throughout the proceedings. Biggest thing is that this is a very tough film to review and not spoil, and it's also one that I suppose could be kind of debated amongst people, but when you start to wrap your head around the fact that perhaps Thinking of Ending Things may not necessarily refer to a relationship, that's when you can kind of start to figure out at least a few different things and how much is actually going on within somebody's head, because there's a lot of internal dialogue. There's a lot of, just like kind of narrative monologue in the first person variety, and it's just internal thoughts from, our main character. And so, yeah, in that aspect, it's a ambitious film. It's a fascinating film. That's the one thing for pretty much everything that I've seen Charlie Kaufman do. It has fallen into that criteria for sure. I mean, talent on display. I don't know how well the storytelling always comes across, but it's definitely avant-garde, auteur, and that sort of. It's not something to be spoon-fed to the average masses. It's something that you will have to ruminate on. It's something you will probably want to read some thoughts from the director himself and the writer. It's probably just something that you can debate, as I said earlier. I can't say I enjoyed it that much, though, and I have really, I mean, Anomalisa 5 years ago, his 2015 film, that was one that was kind of powerful gut punch sort of situation as far as dealing with relationships and stuff, and I thought that film was brilliant. I definitely will not go as far with this particular one. While I enjoyed aspects of it, especially performances, there are definitely some deliberately awkward sequences where I was like, I'm thinking of turning this thing off, and I really rarely encounter that with as many films as I've reviewed since getting into this particular sphere, whether it's horror or stuff here on my personal channel. But yeah, this film felt its runtime at over 2 hours, and Yeah, it was difficult at times. It was definitely one of those deliberately awkward, just nails on a chalkboard sort of films. But then there's also brilliant moments, you know, like some of those, the one particular dance number in the third act is beautifully done in the hallways of this school. But it is definitely a puzzle that you have to kind of piece together, and through a process of elimination and through just, as I said, rumination, discussion, maybe further research that will hopefully help you figure it out. I believe I'm pretty close to it, so I'm just going to say spoilers. Spoilers right now, at least as far as my personal theories about this. So I think our main guy, Jesse Buckley's boyfriend, it's kind of an internal, just him looking at what actually happened throughout his life, because he is this janitor character, presumably, and what he wanted his life to be. I suppose that is evident throughout, and yet it's almost like both of his parents are shown to have dementia at a couple different points in the storytelling, or at least we think they do. Maybe it's just him, and the dementia is manifesting himself through memories of his parents that are not in fact accurate, because he is basically dreaming up this relationship that we don't really know if it happened because of how the story keeps changing throughout. It's like, did you meet at a trivia night? Did you ask for, was he your server, or excuse me, was she your server at a restaurant? Did you just go and bother her and her girlfriend at one particular evening at a bar? Did you just gawk at her and make her feel uncomfortable, and never was a relationship? These are things that are up for that debate and that discussion throughout this. And the film ends, in my estimation, with this character essentially envisioning what he always had dreamed and hoped his life could conclude with, you know, getting the accolades and singing this song that's like uplifting and yet also mournful at times, because life is those peaks and valleys, you know, those twisted mixtures of bitter and sweet, so to speak. And yeah, it's interesting, and yet not that fascinating. Just not up to par for me with a lot of other things that Charlie Kaufman has done. But I would imagine a lot of my fellow cinephiles will really dig this, and they will say that I'm totally off basis. I'm not tearing it to pieces. I'm not tearing it apart! But nonetheless, it's definitely not a personal favorite of mine from him. I still will look at him as a filmmaker that I am always curious and always just intrigued to see what he puts together. 5 years since the last thing that he worked on. So yeah, I mean, that is my thoughts on this one. I'm thinking of ending things. It's definitely, I guess I will go as far, even though it's a 2.5 to a 3, maybe 3.5. Let's just settle on a 3. It is a bueno movie, but it is definitely in no contention for favorites of the year or anything like that. But if you're a fan of this sort of slightly overwrought, disjointed, and challenging storytelling, then I definitely think you should at least give it a shot and see what you think. So yes, once again, 3 out of 5 Fuego Fireballs. It is a bueno film, but in some ways I stretch to even give it that distinction. So I've been Jaime En Fuego. You can find me on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Here on the YouTubies, a like, a share, a subscribe means a hell of a lot. If you dig the spooktacular stuff, definitely jump over to youtube.com/The Horror Show channel, just like you see below. That is the significantly more ginormous status channel that I'm involved with. We just did reviews for Train to Busan Presents Peninsula. That's going to be going up soon. And then earlier this week, we also made a Masked return to the theater for New Mutants, so check those reviews out. Here on my channel, I also reviewed Tenet this past week in my return to the theater with Lady Catherine. So, in any event, I'm En Fuego, y'all have been rad status, and until the Reel of Ka comes around once more, hasta luego, amigos, constant readers, and viewers, in this case, alike. Say thank you for a little bit of your time today, but I'm hopeful we share more of this film palaver sooner rather than later, and until then, in this case, stay safe and stay home, because you don't have to leave to watch this.